So as you can see on my screen, we are what we're colloquially calling the new Resource Center. So the Resource Center was revamped in 2020, and it's important to note that the new Resource Center requires a different login than the old Resource Center. So if you haven't gotten set up in the new Resource Center, you can create a login by visiting the Resource Center homepage, and rather than seeing this Haley Hart edit my profile section in the upper right hand side, it should say something like create my account. So there's tons of valuable resources in the Resource Center, but for the purposes of today, we are going to be looking at the product section. In this section, you'll see 3 links, the product order form, the download section, and the licenses section, which all have asterisks next to them. So these are special areas which require license admin status for entry. So you'll know you're a license admin if you have access to one of these asterisk sections of the Resource Center. And so I clicked on the button and I see that I have access. So I'm a licensed admin. Woo! If you are not yet a licensed admin and you would like to be added as one, you can contact our customer service department and they will be happy to assist you. So what is a licensed admin, you might be asking? Licensed admins are Synergex customers who manage their company's Synergy licenses. So they place orders, they renew subscriptions, and they perform other license-related functions. So one of those functions is ordering products, obviously a vital part to your business and ours. So we're here on the product order form. And the product order form is just that. It is a form. So the process for this is you fill it out. Once it's filled out, our customer service team will get notified. They'll start right away on processing your request. They will send you a quote through DocuSign. And once that quote is signed and processed, you will see the license available to view in the license section of the Resource Center. So let's review the form. The first section you'll see, enter your company and contact information, is very straightforward. The only part that might be a little bit interesting to see is this purchase order number section. If your company doesn't use purchase orders, please disregard. If it does, then this is the easiest way that you can ensure an expedited processing of your license is to have that PO number or whatever your company calls it internally ready and insert it into there. So moving down to enter order details, this licensee name section is one of the most important part of our order form. So the licensee name identifies a license, just like a license number, but it's a lot more memorable and it's easier for people to search and write out. So you as a licensed admin come up with the licensee name. A lot of companies have naming conventions for these. The only requirement is that it must be unique. So we need each licensee name to be different. And the way you can tell if they're different is you can head over to the licenses section of the Resource Center, go to manage licenses and use the search feature. That is a surefire way to maintain those unique identifiers. So the other important thing to note about the licensee name is that the licensee name must exactly match the licensee name that you entered during your installation on your system. So this includes upper and lower cases, hyphens, underscores, spaces. When we say exact, we need exact matching. This is one of the biggest reasons that your license may not match up or that we get errors. It's because there's just these little differences, and so definitely pay attention to that as you're entering in the licensee name. So then we have a couple questions here. Is this a new or existing license? Obviously, if you are doing an existing license, this is going to have some implications for your renewal rates. For in-house or resale, so in-house orders would be for either end users or if you're an ISV who is requesting a product for development or an end user requesting a product for development. And then resale orders are going to be for ISVs, independent software vendors who are developing, marketing, and selling their Synergy applications. So let us know how it will be used. Development licenses are for in-house use only. Production licenses are those licenses that are going to be processing live data. And then let us know your Synergy DE version. This is a drop down. You can't see me clicking it here, but it lists all the different versions of Synergy. Just a plug, we always recommend using the most current up-to-date Synergy DE version. And we also have Synergy version 12.1, which will be released in the coming year. So lots of exciting things happening in development right now. And we hope that when that comes out, you will be ready to adopt it. Let us know the operating system. Again, you can't see this drop down, but you can imagine it's a list of all of the different operating systems that we support at Synergex. And then finally, let us know if this is Rev 11 licensing compatible. So Rev 11 licensing, as I am sure you all know by now, is required for Synergy DE versions 9.5.3b and higher on Windows and Unix platforms. So a simple yes or no. So moving down to choose products here. These are all of the different products you can want. You can let us know the number of users and the exact quantities that you would like for each product. And then we have a drop down here next to the data access, connectivity, and connection driver tools. So this drop down shows if a license is standard or bundled. So if your account has a bundling addendum, this is where you can request bundled licenses. If you have questions on bundling addendums, you can contact your account manager and we'll be happy to chat with you about that and the requirements for bundling addendums. And then finally, if you have any comments or questions or would like to tell our customer service team what a great job they're doing, you can write it in here and then press review order. I won't press it on here because it's going to give me a ton of error messages, but it just gives you a nice summary of what you are requesting. And once you submit that, as I mentioned earlier, our customer service team will get a notification. They will create and send you a quote through DocuSign. You'll need to sign that quote before you will see the license available in the Resource Center. They are generally super speedy, and we'll have this to you if it's in business hours within a couple of hours. However, if you don't hear from them within one business day, definitely reach out to our customer service team and they will take care of you. So that is just a little bit about the ordering form for products. And now we will take it over to Phil. And Phil is going to walk you through the license install process and how to view your licenses.
Awesome. Thanks, Haley. All right, so we're going to go over installation. A little note here on the front end. So this is the current installation experience for Windows with the version 11. So I'll make some notes afterwards after I go through that to kind of, what the difference are between this and different installations. So. All right. So just going to be running through the process now that we've set up putting in the order for a license. Going to go over real briefly about setting up the installation of the license and like where you put that information that was on the order sheet when you're doing the install. Now, for this one in specifically, this is going to be a brand new installation. There's no existing licensing on the machine currently. So when we go through the install, it's going to give us a prompt to go through licensing. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the 64-bit, which is the 104. This is Windows, so 104 SDE is going to be the 64-bit install. You can do it in either order. You just put in the same information. I like to do the 64-bit just because that's where we actually set up the licensing, because 64-bit Windows is where we're setting up 64-bit licensing. So we going to run this. Don't really care for them asking me that every single time, but that's up to you. So this is very straightforward. We're just going to hit next. We're going to agree to the terms. just pick the options that you're going to be doing here. The important part is right here. So if you have, if you've already previously licensed a machine with the license that you've purchased under your license form, that would go here, since this is going to be our licensed machine for our licensed server. The 64-bit version is going to be the licensed server. So we're going to pick this licensed server standalone. This is where we're going to put in that unique licensee name. This is the same name, and you want to make sure that cases, special characters, spaces, anything like that is exactly the same as when you put them into your order form. I'm going to go ahead and just start with company name, the name of this PC, and just some information so I can identify this machine when I'm looking at my licenses, that this one is, what company it is, who's the owner of that, and, what is specific for this machine. This is my Windows 10 machine, so I'm going to put that there. And I'm going to go ahead and just do install. This will put it in as my licensee name. Note with the licensee name, it's not the same as the actual server name. It doesn't need that information. This is just that licensee name that needs to be unique that we put on the order form. So it's going to go ahead and install. Then it's complete. So going to go ahead and hit finish. Then we've got our 32-bit, and we'll just run through that process real quick. It's going to be pretty much the same. Gonna get a couple of these on here just because that's my usual. And then for the license client, it went ahead and just put in that it's assuming that this is going to be local to the machine. And so this is the actual name of my VM that I have set up here. Another fun trick is you can always just put in localhost, and the host machine will look at the host file and just make the connection that you want this to be this machine. I'm going to go ahead and just say the server name. Note, this is the server name, not the licensee name from our licensed server. This is actually wanting the name of the machine that's going to be our licensed client. In this case, it's the same machine that we're already on. And then when you go to set this up on other machines that are going to be licensed clients to your new licensed server, it's going to be prompting for that same server name. You only use the licensee name for when you're setting up the license, and when you start looking at like maintaining your licenses on the Resource Center, which we'll get into in a bit. So let's go ahead and just install there. You can turn that prompt off, but I still have it on my VM. All right, and then that's going to go through the installation process. When that's over, we're going to go ahead and go into the control panel and start the Synergy configuration program, or the SynConfig exe that gets launched. And done. All right, so then we'll go ahead and go into our control panel. We're going to go into our Synergy control panel. The configuration program is going to be our 64-bit one. Is actually the one where it's set up as licensed server. So this has all the information. If you do the 32-bit one, it just says, this is the licensed client, so it doesn't have a whole lot of information besides you can, manipulate what the server name is here. You can change any of this information. If you go into the advanced settings there, you can change any of that information. You can change the name of your licensee name if you accidentally misspelled it or anything like that. It will change your registration string here, which is your unique identifier on the server end for synchronizing that license. You can make changes up until you put in your install code. Once you put in the install code, you can no longer make changes to this licensee name. So this is your point, the point where before you go to grab that install code, you're going to double check and make sure the licensee name matches exactly to the licensee name that you put on the order form, and that you can see on the Resource Center. So because once you make that change, it's a little more difficult to change those settings. So we're going to go ahead and hit OK. As you can see, it has registering not found because we haven't put in our install code yet. So you would just go to obtain your install code online. This would take you to the link to the Resource Center. And as the license admin, you will be able to get the install code. You just need to go match this up with the licensee name that you put into your order form, and then you would just apply your install code here. It's just going to be a 4 alphanumeric code that you put in there, and you would apply it, and then you'd synchronize, and you'd be set to go. So really, that's what it is for this part of the process, and then we can go into the Resource Center and looking at that, getting the install code, and maintaining your licenses on that end. So
Phil is going to share his screen and also take us through a separate part of the licensing section of the Resource Center. And while he sets that up, just a quick reminder, we're going through quite a bit of information in this webinar. So we are recording and we'll have this video available for future reference. So yeah, Phil, take it away.
All right. Yeah, exactly. I was like, this is a lot of information. Even watching that, I was kind of like, wow, that is really a lot to take in. But yeah, I mean, the one advantage we have in support is we, help people with that like on a daily basis, and so we've become quite learned in it. But for people who only have to maintain this once in a while, it's refresher's always good. So I'm glad we're doing this recording. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. This might be a little wonky at first because I'm going to be sharing the screen. This one. Only have one. Okay, perfect. All right, Liz, that is sharing it, right? I'm blind here. Okay. All right, so this is the Synergex Resource Center. We're going to be particularly talking about the licenses. Right now I'm under products, so if you're in the Resource Center, you're going to the products overview to get to this screen. A note before I get too much into this, just because I promised I would be talking about the installation, just some brief changes. So that is the current Windows experience with installation on version 11, which has Rev 11 already on it. When you do, if you're familiar with the older installations on Windows, like version 9 or 10, it goes through Install Shield. The screen where it's showing that you're putting in your licensee name or the license client, that is pretty much the same, just the screen looks different, but the prompts are the same. If you're going through like a Linux install, it's just all text-based, but it's still that once you set up the licensing, it's going to be asking for that licensee name to set up the license. And of course, you don't have a license client option in there currently. So when you just some things to note. Now, of course, on version 10 or some of the Windows or Linux versions, you also have the license upgrade package, which can convert your version 10 to a version the Rev 11 licensing. So just some stuff to note is a little different on those, but the basics are the same. You're looking at your registration string, you're looking at the licensee name, you set that up during install unless licensing is already set up. So just some things to note on what the differences are. And we'll go into a little more of the differences in the licenses once we look at the license, managing your licenses here. So under the Synergy licenses, we're going to be managing our licenses. So if you're a license admin, you can see all the stuff going on here with our license. I've just got 3 dummy licenses that I've set up here. The first thing that kind of show here is the different filters we have. So you can filter by all of your licenses. You can see your new licenses, subscription licenses, or Rev 11 licenses specifically. And so here you can see I've got 2 Rev 11 licenses. So if I filter by the Rev 11 ones, it just shows these Rev 11 licenses. If I do new, I've just got the one. These are all new because I just barely set all these up. And then you can do your subscription licenses. I'm going to go back to all licenses on the screen. And then, of course, you can change how you're sorting this because unlike what I have here with just the 3, I'm sure most companies, when you're maintaining these probably have quite a bit of licenses to go through. So you can filter by the licensee name in alphabetical order, either ascending or descending. You've got the license number, which is over here on the left. The license number is assigned to you once that license is generated. Now, the license number is different from, of course, the registration string, because the registration string is generated by the installation and when license is configured on the machine. The license number is what's assigned to your license once it's set up over in the Resource Center. And so this one, you need to have these memorized or written down. Really, the licensee name, which I have here, is license 1, 2, and 3. Is the most important thing to remember about which license you're dealing with. So a good name on that, like I was saying in the installation part, is essential. So you want to make sure that your licensee name makes sense. It's got like a company name, who it's for, identifying the machine or anything like that, so you can keep track of them. As long as it's meaningful to you and people in the company, then it's useful, right? And then, of course, we have you can do it by the end date here. And so really just these columns here. So when the license is going to expire, then of course by what Rev 11 version it is, when the next scheduled pull is, so you can check the ones that are about to pull, and you can look more into our configuration guide for licensing on when the polling occurs. And as a note, as we've said in videos before about Rev 11, polling only occurs. It occurs usually about once a week, unless and there's a couple of exceptions, like if it's getting close, it's trying to look for those updates. And so, and that's just it reaching out to us. So, but yeah, there's a couple of different things you can sort by, especially the warnings. If there's like stuff going on that you need to check for, you can always, grab the ones with warnings first and ascend by those. And of course, there is always a search feature. So if you have got like a specific license you're looking for, you can search by the licensee name or the license number if you know that of the license as well. So just ways that you can sit here and navigate through your licenses, and make as easy and convenient for you to maintain these and kind of find what you're looking for. And of course, so let's go into this Rev 11 license here. Now, as you can note, it's got a Rev 11 version here. It's got a last sync and a next scheduled poll. So the poll is just checking for changes on the license. So if you've changed number of licenses, what products are licensed, or it's got a new end date, that's when the synchronize, when it's, that's what the poll is checking for. And then if the poll finds changes, that's when you got your last sync date. So sync date is when was the last time it grabbed changes, if there were any, and then polling is, that weekly occurrence of when it's checking for those changes. So let's kind of go into this one. This, of course, is Rev 11 licensing, as you can see by the Rev 11 logo there, and just kind of going over what you can see here and what the different buttons and all that does, right? Yay, buttons. So, basic information that we saw on the other side. Here you'll see your registration string. We'll take a note here that this is quite long, quite lengthy. The registration string of Rev 11 is longer than the traditional one, so that's a quick way of kind of seeing the difference between a Rev 11 and a non-Rev 11 license, is just how long the registration string is. It's much shorter, and we'll kind of go with that on a traditional non-Rev 11 license as well. You've got your all the syncing information. You can also see this if you run the license management utility on your machine to kind of see when the last poll was and when it synced and all that. And then of course the best part is, you can see what products are licensed and how many users on each of this. You can see those mnemonics, those all correspond to the products that you put on that product order form. And so you can get some really great information just real fast on what's on there, and if there's changes that need to be made, what changes you need to request, and that kind of stuff. Just general overview of the license. And then of course with this, now this is a license that's already set up, so the install code's already been run on the machine. However, if you need to make changes to the machine, such as changing the licensee name, then the way to do that with Rev 11 to change a licensee name is by generating another install code, and that goes through a whole process. Usually you'll want to work something out with customer service ahead of time if you're going to be like migrating a license or doing something different on it and just changing over those licenses. And that's why you would be needing to generate an install code on that. Then let's go. I think that's really it for one that's already made. Let's just kind of do a spot the difference now on a non-Rev 11 license, just because you can see those here now too, which is really great with the new Resource Center. This one you can see is, a subscription license, but you'll notice that there is no. So the registration string hasn't been put on this one yet because we're not. We don't have that set up on the system and all that, but you would see that it would be much shorter on here. All right, and as a note with the traditional licenses, there is the generate keys button here, and it does tell you like if it's not enabled here why. If you need to generate your keys, then handy dandy contact customer service to do so. For generating those keys if you need to do so. That's for your manual SKFs, if you're familiar with those, if you've done this before. But that's just a file that you can execute with the license management utility to install licenses manually So that is still an option, still something you can do if you have a non-Rev 11 license there. But once again, if that's grayed out, there's a reason for it. It's stated on that, and you can kind of check that. One last one I wanted to go through is this one has not yet polled, which means it's a new Rev 11 license, and so it's got its registration string and all that on here, but we haven't generated install code and put it on the machine. So when you go to hit that obtain license online during installation, it's going to take you to your managing your licenses. That link was in the video there. And then you would be going here, you'd be clicking on the license that corresponded, finding it by its licensee name, and then generating the install code, then taking the install code and hitting that next button with the Synergy configuration program with the install your code. And so once that's put in, then once again, the licensee name becomes a little harder to change. If you have it all correct, you'll know very quickly if there's issues and that kind of stuff. It'll give you give you some feedback on how that's working. If it's all working, then you'll see that this information will get filled out. You've got your poll, your sync, and everything is set up correctly like we saw on the other license. And that's how you know, hey, I put in everything right. Install code went in, and we're all set up on our end to do that. So yeah, just overall, that is how the licensing works on your as when you're talking about managing licenses. You can see all your licenses at a glance here, which is a really nice feature for maintaining those. And yeah, trying to think if there's anything else really to cover on these. I think, from start to finish, from ordering it, getting it set up here, because once you order it, then once it's set up, you can go and find it here based on that licensee name. And whether you've installed before ahead of time or afterwards, as long as that licensee name matches up, then you can come and grab your install code and get that all licensed, and you're set to go. So let me go ahead and stop sharing. Switch back over so I can see what's going on. All right.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil.
Yeah.
So now we will open things up to questions. You can, again, type your question into the chat or Q&A, and we actually do have a question ready. Or if you look at the very bottom of the chat section, there's a little raise hand icon. And if you raise your hand, we will give you the ability to unmute yourself. So I'll start with our first question. Rob asks, do licenses need to be unique across all other customers or just within our account? And I think he's referring to license names specifically.
Yeah, that's a great question. And the licenses need to be unique within your account, but a lot of customers have success naming them in ways that would also be unique across other customers. So if you're an ISV, naming it your customer and what machine it is, or if you're an end user, like what the purpose for that license is. So the more specific, the better. But yeah, there's not a requirement that it needs to be unique across all Synergex customers.